Performer and teacher Alli Gessner specializes in oboe and English horn. She maintains an active teaching schedule of students age 8 and to adults. And her students are her inspiration for her oboe anti videos on social media. Alli launched her first online course, Switching to Oboe, in 2022. Alli is on the faculty at West Valley College. She holds a Master of Music from DePaul University, where she studied with Yelena Dirks and Eugene Isotov. When not playing or teaching oboe, Alli enjoys yoga, hiking, fiber arts, and watching or reading science fiction. Without further ado, let's welcome our presenter today, Alli Gessner.
Thank you so much. Are we going? Hello? Can you see? Oh no, it was going a second ago. No, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Okay. Yep, that's me. I'm Alli. I am an oboe teacher. I have been teaching for almost 15 years now. And I happen to be on the board. I'm a member at large on the board. I'm also listed on our website as the technology chair, even though I don't do all of the technology things. So I suppose this presentation is a little bit in my wheelhouse. And part of what inspired me to do this presentation is last year, Grant and I were doing an initiative at San Jose State to try and get more young people involved in the chapter. And what we learned is if you don't know any of the current students at San Jose State, they probably won't come to your presentation. But what we did anyways was I put together a presentation on how to grow your studio. And part of it was just a couple of slides about technology tools for music teachers. So some of our members came to that presentation, and I ended up doing the presentation that I had planned, even though there were no college students. And what was interesting is all of the members that were there, I think, were really on board with the studio policy part of my presentation. And then there were a lot of new information on the slides about technology. So Grant suggested that I put together a bigger presentation and bring it to the chapter in a meeting like this. Now, I have been teaching online since 2012, which I know is not super common. Many of us started teaching online because of COVID. So can I just take a poll of the room? How many of you taught online during COVID? Okay, we almost all did. Great. How many of you currently teach online? Not all of us. So it's about a half reduction by of who in this room is still teaching online and who is not. Now, I prefer to have the online option because I find that it gives my students more access to me and it makes it more flexible. So part of what I do is also perform. And that means that sometimes I have to drive for 2 hours to get to where this orchestra is. And that cuts into my teaching time. So the hybrid studio enables me to teach my students from the location where I'm going to be rehearsing. And most of the time, I am able to ask the orchestra manager, like, hey, could I just use the green room for an hour before rehearsal so I can teach a couple of lessons? And they say, yeah, sure, why not? We're not using that space before rehearsal. It's there for you to use. So I'm giving you this as an example of how you can be more flexible too, even if you are on vacation. If you have access to a piano or your instrument, you can still do those couple of lessons if you want to online to avoid losing that bit of income that you might otherwise not be able to access. So I think it's a really great resource. I will be taking questions at the end. Is it essential right now?
It's okay.
Okay. And then the other part of this is I'm just going to be sharing a bunch of tools and resources for you that you could maybe utilize, but not all of the resources here will be correct for every teacher. Some of them, most of them I use or have used a little bit. Some of them I have not messed around with yet. Okay, so technology in our private lesson studios technology in our lives, right, is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. We expect to encounter it. You can't get away from technology. And I think that's to our benefit because we can have a better experience often for our students and for our families through the use of technology if we do it well. I have lumped things into 3 different categories. So our first category that I'll talk about is tools for connection. So this is your online lesson platforms. It also is going to include some microphone recommendations to make your online lesson experience a little bit better. And then we also have tools for studio management. This can include billing, scheduling. It also can include sheet music. And then finally, we have tools for students and families. So these are the resources that you might give to your students so that they can have a more efficient practice. And the most important note is to say that technology is always subject to change. Now, I did look into all of these before today, but updates are always coming out. Apps are sometimes going away. So some of these may not be available, in 6, 12 months, 2 years from now. So first, we're going to talk about tools for connection, and here's where I'm going to encourage you to teach online. Again, it provides you flexibility of location and more consistency of what you can provide to your students and their families. Now, online lesson platforms are more than just Zoom. We are not stuck in a world where we only have Zoom and we have to, can you turn on your original audio? We've all struggled through that, right? But I'm here to share with you some other options. So what I've got on the screen are the 3 big ones that I was able to find. Rock Out Loud Live is the one that I use currently. Musi.live is one that I've looked into, but I don't remember why I didn't use Musi. I think I was already using Rock Out Loud and it was good enough, right? But they're very similar. They're both Chrome-based. And then FarPlay is new to me. It seems a little bit more geared towards the musician who is going to be having rehearsals rather than teaching. But I think it could be interesting to utilize it for teaching as well. So these are web-based call platforms that prioritize audio quality over video. And that's the most essential part for us as music teachers. The problem with Zoom is that they think everything is speech. And so they compress the heck out of everything, even when you turn on your original sound settings. And they restrict how much time you can have without paying for it, right? Musi does not have a time restriction. Musi has a free option where you never have to pay. And it, again, prioritizes that audio. They allow group lessons. I can say for sure, Rock Out Loud Live, it doesn't have a limit for how many people can join my group lessons. And so I use it for group makeup class once a month. Rock Out Loud for sure provides a static URL for ease of student login. And this I think is really essential for those students who are not as comfortable navigating things on the computer as they should be, I think. Because I think we all have students who are like, I don't know how to set that setting up. You just go to Chrome, you hit your bookmarked URL of where your oboe lesson is, and you can log in really easily. I'm not certain that Musi does that, but Rock Out Loud for sure does. And then finally, it has the functions that you would want. The mute control, screen share, document sharing, a lot more options are available through these platforms. I also recently learned about this. As I was doing my research for this presentation, I came across Open Broadcaster software, and I haven't had a chance to implement it yet, but it helps manage audio levels and quick switches for multiple camera angles, layered views, and multiple mic inputs. I think this would be really fantastic, especially for my reed making classes. So I could have my phone camera set up as like looking at my hands, and my camera set up as looking at my face. And so for the student experience, I wouldn't have to toggle back and forth like I do now. And so I'm excited about this one specifically. But I imagine that you could have one set up over your keyboard so your student could see your hands, and one set up for your face so that you could be looking at them as well, and they can see both of those views. I love this option for us. What I like about this too is this is a software you download to your computer, And my understanding is that it is free. So, a great tool. Now, external microphones, as we know, will have a better audio quality experience for whoever is listening to whatever's happening online. So regardless of if you have your students use an external microphone, I do recommend that you use an external microphone. Our computer microphones are made for speech. And if you are using a computer that's more than 3 years old, the microphone technology is not going to be that great. So we want to make sure we have a good experience for our students. I also think that it's a reasonable expectation for students who are taking frequent online lessons. So for example, if you have a student that is only going to be online, they probably should have an external microphone of some kind because you need to know what's happening in their space. Now, there are some considerations. I have a student who is lower income and they are trying their best and oboe reeds are expensive, so the external microphone doesn't work for her, but I ask her to send me a recording every week so I can hear what's going on in her practice room. I can hear if she's in tune. I can hear if she's using vibrato. And more important is the dynamic range. So I don't know if you have noticed this, but the dynamic range that you can hear online is like a fraction. It's just the middle ground, the mezzo dynamics of what we actually can achieve with our instruments or with our voices. So I think the recording technology and sending recordings back and forth is going to be really important. I do notice that those students that use an external microphone have a greater dynamic range, but it's all unfortunately contingent upon bandwidth. And then in case you are looking for a microphone, this is a list that I was sent by one of my colleagues. The ones that have stars I looked at, they definitely require a boom arm, which is that fancy thing, that arm that you stick the microphone on, right? That's a little bit much for a setup for me because I don't do 100% online. So I prefer a tabletop microphone. And I think that some of the other Shure products are tabletop microphones. But you can't go wrong with a Shure brand microphone. They are excellent. Okay, our next category, tools for studio management. These are what I have found so far as studio management software options. So we have Duet Partner, Fonz, My Music Staff, and Opus One. They each are a little bit different from each other, and I haven't used all 4 of them. The one that I use currently is Duet Partner. I'm actually thinking about switching away from them because I recently hired another teacher to teach for my studio, and it's more difficult to manage giving them agency over like saying, yes, the lesson was completed and making adjustments and stuff with Duet Partner. So I'm actually looking at moving to Fonz. But what I liked about Duet is that it does an automated payment option. It does automatic billing for you. You can set things up so that it just goes for you. So you don't have to do that monthly billing stuff. It's so annoying. And you don't have to chase people down about payments. My Music Staff, I think, has been around even longer. Like that's the oldest, the one that I heard about the earliest in my teaching. And then Opus One is one that Julie told me about because this is what she uses for Opus 11. It sounds like it's more designed for the large studio with multiple teachers or the music school. Now, the reason we want these the studio management software, it's designed to streamline the administrative part of running your studio. It includes things like scheduling. Often they can do self-sign-up depending on the settings that you choose. They can do the studio management platforms can do billing, payment. They can set up auto pay. They have practice log options, communication with families, and they can also store your lesson notes if you want them to. So it's all based on what you want out of the software. You can probably get it. And you may not think of digital sheet music as like a studio management tool, but I think it's an important one to talk about because we're increasingly in this digital age of, oh, buy this online, and then wait 2 weeks for it to ship to my house. And this is actually a question that I got from Crystal prior to this presentation is, can you talk a little bit about digital sheet music? Absolutely. The thing that we're going to need for our digital sheet music is you're going to want to have a tablet to use your sheet music on. I personally use an iPad, but it works just as well on non-Apple tablets. You will want to have a Bluetooth pedal for your tablet if you're going to use it for performing at all. There are so many different brands of Bluetooth pedals. A brand doesn't really matter. And I'll share with you an anecdote. My Bluetooth pedal I've had for like a decade and it's been great, but I just updated my iPad and now my pedal won't connect. Something happened in the update where Apple changed the frequency of Bluetooth. And so now the frequency doesn't match with what the pedal puts off. And so now I am in this weird gray area because the manufacturer of the pedal is saying that it's Apple's fault and Apple is saying that it's the pedal's fault. And I have to buy a new pedal. So unfortunately, this comes into the bucket of technology is always changing. And there will be a time where your device may not work as well as it did earlier. So that's a thing to be aware of, that it may happen, especially if it's not a product that came with or is branded by the same brand as your tablet. I think if I had an Apple brand pedal, which doesn't exist, it would be fine. But what can we do? The other thing that you're going to want is a stylus. And for me, I use an Apple Pencil because what you'll want if you are performing, for sure, is you want a way to annotate on your tablet that is easier than your finger. You can absolutely use your finger, but the stylus I find just makes it quicker and easier. You may want the stylus if you're going to use digital sheet music with your students, because you may put the tablet on the stand, or, okay, is it called a stand? Yeah, on the in front of them, and you may need to annotate on their music on the tablet just like you would on their paper music. I often do this for my students when they forget their particular piece of music at home on their music stand, and I'm like, good, you were practicing, bring it next time. But we annotate with the pencil. The other thing that you'll need to think about when we are thinking about digital sheet music is how and where you're going to store your sheet music. Something that we're really used to is cloud storage being available and ubiquitous and always connected to Wi-Fi. However, I have been in many situations where I'm in the mountains in a church and it's really remote and I barely have 1 bar of service. And if I don't have everything downloaded to my device, there's no way that I can find that score and be able to actually use it. And this happens actually when I'm teaching as well. Often my cloud storage app that I use will not refresh, and then I open it and then it takes like 5 minutes to load because it's refreshing from the cloud. So just know that cloud storage is convenient, but it's not perfect. So I always recommend that you download things to the device, store it locally on the device, store it backed up in the cloud, and then the final important step is have a hard drive backup at your house. Because this has not happened recently, but what happens when the server farm that's hosting all this information has a power outage or something, right? It does happen occasionally. You want to be able to access this. You don't want to be without your music for a day, 3 days, a week. So have a local backup. And then I've got the options for our cloud storage. These are just the most common. You've probably heard of them. I use Box because my Dropbox and my Google Drive are full of other stuff. But yeah, that's what I use. And then finally, score reading apps. Now, some people use just the file management software that's built into their device. That's totally fine. You can annotate from your file management software, but these are the apps that are made specifically for musicians to keep your sheet music, to make it easy to annotate with the touch of a finger or the stylus. The one that I use, the one I'm most familiar with, is Fourscore, and this is one of the earliest ones that was available for the iPad, so I bought it in the really early days of the iPad, and I'm not looking for another one. But I know that these are the other options. So PIA score, I think, is really common. Music, this was new a couple of years ago, or new to me. What I don't like about it is that you have to pay a subscription fee. And I'm not excited. Yeah, exactly. Boo, subscription fees just to read my sheet music. That's not a good idea. What I think they're doing is I think that they have some they have some music that is only on music. So they're trying to capture a little bit of the market share from people who are purchasing compositions from living composers, potentially. But I've never come across something that I couldn't find somewhere else. So it's a thing. You could look into it. Super Score, I haven't looked into, but because it says in-app purchases when I looked it up, that makes me think that maybe the base version is free. Same thing with KeyScore. I think KeyScore is actually free. So you don't have to pay for the fancy one. You can get the basic one, and you can recommend this to your students as well if they're going to play from a tablet. All of this, your students can have as well. Okay, so then where do we get the digital sheet music? When I did, in 2020, I converted most of my teaching materials to PDFs. I just took a couple of weeks, and in the evening, I would just grab my phone, create PDFs of everything with a PDF creating app. And that's something that you can do. That's something that actually you may want to do to transition over to your tablet. Is it time consuming at the beginning? Yeah, it is. But once you have it done once, you will have your tablet loaded full of your teaching resources, and you never have to do that again. But you could also purchase music. So there is the convenience factor of you go online, you purchase your score, you're able to download it immediately. You don't have to wait the 2 weeks for shipping that we do most of the time from other places. The other part of this also is that you will always have that PDF on demand sharing with your students. So your students are sight reading something and they're like, ooh, I really want to play it. Great. Send it on over, but have them also order a copy for themselves. I often do this when I'm introducing recital solos. I'll send a PDF of the solo and I say, okay, here's a link to purchase it because it's important to purchase the music and support the publishers, as we know, but you can practice in the meantime. You don't have to wait to get your music in order to start working on it. There are drawbacks though. Not all music is available as a digital download. And like I said at the beginning, you would need to digitize this stuff yourself. So I can give you a really good example. One of my favorite composers for woodwinds, Alyssa Morris, she does not offer her music as a digital download that I have found. It's only available as a paper copy. So the way that I get around this when I'm working on her repertoire with my students is that I own a lot of her catalog and I have it as a PDF that I can send to the student and say, okay, here's the movement that you wanted, please buy a copy, and just make sure that they're buying that copy, again, to support the composers and the publishers. Now, the most important part is that we get MTNA discounts. And this is awesome. I think you should take advantage of this anytime that you can. And the discounts are available at Sheet Music Now, Music Notes, and Sheet Music Plus. These three, if you've never used the MTNA discount code, they are always changing them. So they change about once a month, maybe once every 2 months. And that information is going to be on the monthly MTNA, like at the very bottom of the big monthly MTNA digest email. So that's the reason I keep those emails, is to scroll all the way down and go, okay, Sheet Music Plus code, yeah. But I also have some icons of the other places where you can go to get music. IMSLP, if you've never gone to the Internet Music Database, please do. It's a great resource. It has everything that is not under copyright in the US. It's got, I shouldn't say everything, but it collects the things that are not under copyright. So useful. It also often has autograph copies. So like in the composer's hand, if you wanted to do more research about what was happening on the manuscript of the initial version from the composer, or like copies and stuff. And I think that's really interesting when your students get into the nitty-gritty of it. The other one that I came across was the Henley Library apparently has an app. That's very cool. I also found that most of the major music publishers on their websites will tell you if they have a digital download available. So Hal Leonard, Carl Fisher, all of those huge publishing houses, most of them, no, they all have a website. And they will tell you there, they want to tell you, they want your money. So they'll give you a link to the digital download if it exists. So then we're coming to tools for students and families. Above and beyond what we would use for ourselves, we've got practice tools. Now, we know that one of the most effective ways for your students to practice and coach themselves is to record and listen back. I used to recommend that that students use the Voice Memos app. And the hack to get your Voice Memos app to pick up your dynamic differences is to put it 5 feet away, like put it across the room, then you get more of the room sounds. However, in the latest iOS update, everything is compressed for like literal actual voice. So I can't say that anymore. And so for that reason, I'm gonna recommend that you use the camera app. And how do you get a teenager who somehow loves to take a selfie but hates to record themselves playing? Like, whatever. What you tell them to do is you put the phone across the room facing the ceiling. So take a video of the ceiling, but you can hear everything that's happening. And the camera app is actually totally great for audio. So I think this is a really, really convenient solution for that. There are, of course, other apps that you can get free and paid for recording instruments, but why bother when you have a camera app? We know, of course, that tuners and metronomes are super, super important. Now, the combo that I recommend for iOS, I'm really sorry for Android users. I don't know what to tell you, but for iOS, we have these two top ones, InstTuner and Pro Metronome. And what I like about them is they work at the same time, even though they're not both up on your home screen. So what I like to do for my warm-ups, because we do long tones over a drone, but with the metronome to keep time. So we start with Pro Metronome, get our metronome going, and then we open up InstTuner, and then we put our drone on, and we can hear both because they're developed by the same company. So they work at the same time, layering on each other. And I think that's super valuable for developing tuning. But also, there is SpeakBeat, which Grant turned me on to. I've not messed around with it, but my understanding is that it says out loud the numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, for those students that need the numbers to remind them of what's happening. We also have iReal Pro, which if you have students that are working with jazz and they want to do improvisation, they have backing tracks there. And they also have the Real Book, which gives you the chord changes and whatnot. So you can really get your students practicing their improvisation. And then finally, this one, Yvonne recommended it to me and I haven't messed with it, but it sounds really cool. Music Speed Changer. It changes the speed, but it doesn't affect the pitch. How great is that for fast pieces that your students need to work out the technique? I'm really excited about it. When I looked into it on their website, you can use their website, you can use their app on your phone, you can use their app on the tablet, you can download their app for your computer. So they're trying to make it widely available. And it looks like it's free, I think. Could be a great resource. Another thing that we will always do in lessons, of course, is music theory, ear training, sight reading. So I'm going to point you to the RCM tools here because I am an RCM teacher, so I'm preparing students for RCM exams. Their ear training tool is really, really, really good. It gives you access to all of the levels. So you're not subscribing to a particular level. You are getting all of the levels. So you can have someone that's never done ear training, but they're taking a level 8 exam and they can work their way through it, because sometimes we do that. Last year, I can't say that this is true this year, I'm not sure that it is, but last year, RCM gave students free access to the ear training module for 1 month when they registered for the exam. So I always recommended that my students wait until the month before the exam to then log into the module and start working through it so they could use that free period. But if you have a student that has a really bad ear, you can have them subscribe early. It is a subscription. They do have to pay for it, but it's a great tool when you need that ear training. RCM also offers online music theory courses, which culminate in the music theory exam that will qualify them for those great honors, which is, why we want them to do their music theory exam. So if for those who are not familiar with the RCM exam, once you get past a certain level, for students to be considered for honors, regardless of what score they get on their practical, they are required to also take music theory. The online theory course is slightly different from their traditional method. Traditionally, you would just go and take a big test, and that's your score for your theory. But what my students like is that they get to take practice tests, and at the end of each chapter, basically, of the course, they take a little quiz, and that all of those quizzes are added, their score is added up together, and that's 50% of their final score. So it's combined with the final test rather than you only get one chance to take the final test. So it can give them a better chance at getting that really good score that they're looking for if you have students that are really wanting to get an award like I do. So, different students. We also have Tenuto, which is another music theory app. I don't have any experience using this, but it was recommended to me. And then for sight reading, it can be really challenging for us to practice the skill of sight reading. It can be really challenging for students to practice the skill of sight reading on their own because they may be like, I don't know what to sight read to practice. So Sight Reading Factory is the resource that I point them to. Now, in the past, you've been able to go to their website and just hit sight read, and you've been able to access, I'm going to say like 10 plays. And I think it's per month or per week, something like that. So they limit you to how many times you can sight read with their tool without paying. I tried to test this out yesterday, but I think they know who I am and where I live. So I had to log into my account. But this would be a resource for you as the teacher to log to pay for the year so that you can then put it in front of your student at every lesson that you have. So you have a little bit of sight reading. The other thing that I use Sight Reading Factory for is when we're practicing for our RCM melody playbacks, you just have them create, plug in whatever, level 2, level 3, hit create, and then listen to it and have the student play it back without looking. So it can do that for you. For me, as an example, for me, I don't have a piano. So it's really hard for me to practice the ear training and the melody playback with my students. So Sight Reading Factory has been actually a really great tool to use for that. Then there's more. We have practice journal apps. Now, the two at the top, Modacity and Andante, these are our more traditional practice apps where they're more individual based. Modacity is the one that I am the most familiar with. I got it in 2019, I think, when they first launched the app. It's really intended to be something, a tool that makes your digital practice helper less distracting. So it is one color. It's not interesting to look at. It has a tuner and a metronome and a drone and a practice journal and an audio recorder built into the app so that you don't have to navigate away. It turns off your notifications so that you don't get that distraction, which can be really helpful. However, it's also subscription-based. So I think this is for the very serious musician that is worried about being distracted by their phone when they're practicing. So that may be appropriate for your older students, probably not for the younger ones. I'm not as familiar with Andante, so that would be interesting to check out. It is highly reviewed. And then Practice Space is the other one that was recommended to me as I was preparing for this presentation. Yvonne says, I love Practice Space. All my student notes live here. We communicate with each other through the app, and if a lesson is missed, they send recordings directly in Practice Space for me to review and return new notes to them. So it sounds like it's not just the practice journal, but it's also a way for you to give your students assignments and for them to record what they're actually practicing and what they've done, which could be a really awesome tool for your studio. It is also a subscription. So again, with all of the technology, there are pros and cons as far as the financials go. I think if it provides the value to your studio and you utilize it and you really like it, then it's super, super valuable. And then our final suite of applications are those for composition. So MuseScore is what I have been using for a while. It's a free notation software that you can download onto your computer, but it also has kind of a community online resource area. They're trying to make it into like somewhat a social media experience where you can use their notation software exclusively online, so you don't have to download it to your computer if you don't want to. The drawback to using the online only is that only the person that creates the score can download what they've created. And anyone else that wants to utilize that either has to be looking at the website, or you have to pay a subscription fee, or you have to pay to purchase it. So, and the other drawback to MuseScore is that you'll get a lot of arrangements of popular music that have been done by not professional musicians. So the music theory aspects of composition are not there. I've seen compositions that should be in 6/8 notated in 3/4 because they didn't know what 6/8 was. And then it comes out in 3/4 and you're like, oh, this is really hard to play correctly because it should be in 6/8, right? So again, pros and cons to a lot of this, but it can be a really great resource if your student is looking for music from anime. Like there's a lot of anime themes that you can find on MuseScore. You may tell them, great, you should get it, load it into your own MuseScore and edit it. You can use that as a little music theory assignment if you wanted to. And then the other question that comes with composition is, what about audio composition? So taking different tracks, putting them together, doing that, like making a beat and playing over it, that kind of thing. For that, you're going to want to look for a digital audio workspace, AKA a DAW. They get really complicated really fast. And I don't have a lot of experience with them. The one that I have used is Audacity, which is actually recommended more for podcasting than for music. But for my purposes, I'm using one track, and it's mostly, when you make a recording, splice off the beginning and the end when you're like walking towards the recording device. That's very simple to do. You exporting it to MP3, very simple to do. Same thing, GarageBand. This is what I recommend that my students use when they're doing their all-state recordings, because you can, again, trim off the unnecessary bits, put it closer together. You can do your minimal allowed amount of editing. But then you can get a lot more complicated. Logic Pro is the Apple version of a DAW, but there's also Pro Tools, Ableton Live. All of this I'm less experienced with. These are the program names you can check out. But then also there is a CAPMT member, Nate May. His company Synthase is all about composition and music theory. And one of the courses that he does still, I think, did for a while, is to teach students how to create music on a DAW. So he would be a great resource for you if that's something that your students are really interested in looking for. He could tell you where to go, what to get, and maybe coach you on like how to make it work, or send them to Nate, and that would be good. Okay. So this is the point at which I'll take questions, except I have a couple of preloaded questions that I'll start with. So our first preloaded question is from Grant. I'm going to read the email that you sent me. Okay, so Grant says, I am looking at starting an online community platform, basically a hub to teach and reach people regardless of where they are located around the world, and for them to be able to connect with each other, not necessarily centrally around me. Do you have examples of similar communities? Some examples I've found are Open Studio Jazz, Popmatics, Top Music for Teachers, etc. So we all may be familiar with Top Music. That's Tim Topham's group community. He's an Australian pianist and music teacher, I want to say, and he has this huge company, Top Music, that he's built around how to teach music and teaching music online, that kind of topic. I have 2 places for you to look at, and I looked at what is the platform that they use to create their thing, which is different. So the first one is called Teach Music Online. This is a coaching for music teachers who want to be more comfortable teaching online, built by piano teacher Carly Walton, but her platform is built on top of Mighty Networks. So Mighty Networks it looks like it's designed for educational communities that will be on a subscription-based payment. The other one that came to mind is I have an oboist colleague, Erin Brophy, she lives in Saskatchewan, Canada, and she has built a part of her sales funnel for her program, the Oboe Path, which is like a mentorship lesson program, is something called the Oboe School, which is free, and it's an online social media-ish experience. So it looks kind of like a very, very basic version of Facebook where there's a feed, so you can ask each other questions, you can share recordings, you can post pictures, that kind of stuff. But most of it is geared around her weekly free office hours or whatever that she offers to the Oboe School. And this is built on the platform school.com, spelled with a K, so SKOOL.com. So those are the ones that I could come up with.
What's her name again?
Erin Brophy, Brophy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Have you used the Teach Music Online, or is that?
Yeah, I subscribed to it for a little over a year, and it is part of where I learned a lot of the skills and management of studio information stuff when I first started teaching online. So I think I was a member of that community from 2021-ish. Yeah, for about a year. But it came to a point where I wasn't learning anymore, and I didn't value the social aspect of it, so I stopped subscribing. And it's like $60 a month, so great for continuing education, not great for just not using it. Yeah. Okay, and then the other preloaded question is, are there any apps that come with orchestral or piano accompaniments for the standard concerti, sonatas, etc.? The answer is yes, and there are non-app things that you can get too. So the app that comes to mind, I actually learned about from one of my adult students, is called Tom Play. And this is a subscription-based one, but what she likes about it is that she can, if they don't have an accompaniment for something that you're studying, you can email them and request that they add it. And she has actually had the experience multiple times where she's requested a piece and they add it. So it seems like they do a really good job of monitoring their inbox and responding to subscriber questions and stuff.
TOM, Tom?
Yeah, like the name. Yeah, TOM Play. Yeah.
Whose question is that?
Mine.
That was Janice's, yeah. And then the others that come up, the brand Music Minus One is now owned by Hal Leonard. They definitely have not just, they have like CDs from way back in the day, but I think it's available on the Hal Leonard website now, so you can purchase it through Hal Leonard. But Music Minus One was my immediate thought. YouTube has a shocking number of just accompanists have uploaded the accompaniment part of this standard oboe sonata. So I would direct you actually to YouTube, and you search, Mozart piano concerto number, blah, 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 piano accompaniment. Probably you'll get it. And then finally, my favorite one, if you're looking for something to purchase and own forever, is on Bandcamp. There's the artist is called Classical Minus One, and they have not only piano accompaniment, but they also have orchestral accompaniment files that you can purchase. A lot of them you can purchase one-offs, but they also have different tempi, which can be really, really helpful for students as they're working those pieces up. And I like that it's available for purchase because you're supporting the creator, and it's really important to support creators where we can. So those are the preloaded questions. Are there any other questions that came up?
My last question is, with the emergence of AI, are there AI movements and apps and stuff that we should be aware of that can help us with our teaching, with studio management, with communications?
That's a great question. I personally do not utilize AI products all that much in my day-to-day life because I find that they cost more to the environment and my brain and my students' brains and my friends' brains than they add. So it has been studied now that if you use generative AI to make a little paragraph or like a little summary of something, you do not remember the information. So if the point of our teaching is to build knowledge, I think that AI is not a tool that we should use with our students, just because it demonstrably does not build knowledge. It just does it for you. So if you are in a rush and you don't have time and you don't want to think about it, great. That's a perfect use for AI. But it doesn't add anything. And even more than that, even worse than that, I think we should be encouraging our students to be creative. And the act of trying something and then editing that thing themselves, is super valuable to learn how to compose, to learn how to perform. And you don't get the editing when you just read it off of a chatbot. So for that reason, I haven't used any AI tools in my teaching. And I think that teaching is one of the special things that our human brains do really well. And that's one of our specialized skills. So I encourage all of you to embrace that as your special skill and don't look to outsource it, because like this is what you do. You're great at it. Why would you give away your special skill to a computer that's not actually creating anything? It's actually just taking what you did and trying to say it differently. So that's how I feel about AI.